Hello and welcome to the Geek Battle Gaming YouTube channel. If you haven't done so already, please take a moment to smash that subscribe button, because today we are talking about the Resident Evil 4 Remake chainsaw demo. Now, this thing dropped after the Capcom presentation tonight, and it's got about 10 to 20 minutes of gameplay on there when it's all said and done. It takes you through the beginning of the game, and it does have some changes from what you will have known from the original version of Resident Evil. So on this preview today, I'm just getting this done because I've literally just played through the demo a couple of times. Let's take a look.
September 30th.
Okay, so now we're going to go through the demo. It starts off with footage from Resident Evil 2, so you'll recognise this if you played the Resident Evil 2 remake. There's Licker, there's Mr. X, and all of this stuff is just actual footage, I believe, from Resident Evil 2. That's possibly from Resident Evil 3, I can't remember if you see that specific scene. Then this is brand new footage which shows Leon with the President. And this is new footage which shows how Leon was trained by Krauser, and that's obviously going to be relevant to the knife fight much later in the game. It really does give the sense, though, that they're giving the sense that Leon has been through some trauma that he's trying to forget, and I half wonder if it's going to play into the nightmares and some of the things haunting him, as was rumoured that they'd brought back from the original, now known as Resident Evil 3.5 Hookman demo, where there's going to be something where Leon's having a hallucination. Now we see this stuff here which just kind of skips over when Leon was being driven into the village by the two local Spanish language police experts or whatever, and then this is obviously very significantly different from how Resident Evil 4, the original version, starts off. Everything's dark and gloomy, whereas on the original it's all set during the daytime. Now, for this playthrough, this was my second playthrough of this demo, and I've literally tried to run through it, so we won't be looking at all of the scenery and everything in great detail, but the graphics, as you can imagine, look fantastic. And then this is starting to be reminiscent of the first place you go in, where you meet one of the villains and you decide, oh, they're not a zombie. But this isn't the exact same layout. And this does have a few more people in this than what you would see in the original one. Now, as I was doing this playthrough, because this was my second one, I did skip past the cutscenes, which you can do in this demo, so I've just edited them back in, just because the first playthrough I did, I was really looking at all of the scenery and everything in great detail, and so it was just a bit more of a drag to watch. But as you can see, this is that initial person you meet. Instantly, though, when you see this guy, you can see his eyes are bloodshot, which kind of signposts to you that he's possessed in some way, that he's got the parasite, the virus, whatever, Las Plagas they call it. I'm not 100% convinced with this character model of Leon as an evolution from what we saw in Resident Evil 2 Remake. There's something about this version that just feels skinnier and less bulked out compared to how he looked in the original Resident Evil 4 game. Doesn't feel like he's aged enough. Now, what's quite cool here is they go for the creepy idea that his neck is very broken and it's all twisted on the side, and that is definitely creepy. And instantly, you get the sense that there are other people in the property here. The graphics are incredible. Still, though, the fact that this is available on Xbox One and PS4, you just know that in some ways this is probably being held back, which is a real shame, just because I feel like for this game it would be brilliant to have it absolutely not PS4, because you think this game, the original game, came out in 2005, and that was on the GameCube, and then was ported with within a few months later to the PS2. So for this to be a game that's still available on the PS4 so many years later, it just feels like that, this should be something that's truly PS5 generation, not just 2 generations removed from the PS2, so that it could still run on the PS4. No offense to PS4 level owners, but you know, it's time to upgrade, and then we could have got the best version of this possible. And there's probably still ways where it's held back just so they could make a version that would run on the PS4. So here we find one of the guys that came with you. I can't remember if you find this guy dead in the original or if you just find the guy that's being burnt in the village. This obviously gives a sense that these guys have been killed off. They definitely go for a lot darker and creepier straight from the get-go here, which I don't know if I'm in favour of, just because even though you do run into a few bad guys in the original version before you get to the village, there is still the sense that the village you get to looks like it's got people behaving normally, whereas obviously this guy already looks this guy looks more like a zombie in fact. So in the first one it's that, oh, he's not a zombie because bad guys could like talk and they could coordinate and point to each other, whereas that kind of just looks like a zombie. So I think they know an awful lot of people who will play this will have played the original version, and so this is kind of like a couple of twists on what original players will expect, just to mess with their expectations rather than it have the same impact and effect as the original version did, where you could still be teased that some of them are like normal people. So here comes the second cutscene, which on my run through here I did skip over, and I don't quite understand this. Perhaps as I watch it now I'll get a greater sense of what this means. Is that meant to be Ashley that's been kidnapped? Kind of looked a bit dead.
Bruce, this is Condor 1.
Hunnigan here. What's your sit rep?
So here we see the new version of Hunnigan, and yeah, she still looks like Hunnigan. Obviously,
well done.
Hunnigan is a character that appeared in like Resident Evil 6 especially. So I don't know if they'll do a remake of Resident Evil 5 and 6. It's possible they'll do a remake, certainly of Resident Evil 5, and they kind of need to of Resident Evil 6, but they might just be counting Resident Evil 6 as still canon, so they need to keep Hunnigan's appearance consistent with that.
I'll let myself out.
So yeah, still just the same beat there of the story where Leon jumps from an upstairs window to escape. Whereas normally when you'd play the original version he would have to run from a couple of guys down on this ground level. But it's weird because it's not just that it's covered by trees, it seems like it's nighttime. So once again that was just a little glitch because I added in that cutscene just because I'd skipped it over. Now they said this wasn't a timed demo, but as soon as you get into the village that we're going to get into in a moment, like the clock is kind of ticking, literally, because the bell goes at the end of the demo, and then that is the end of the demo, so you can't just keep going until you would have like cleared the area of enemies or anything. So this was still cool to try. You can still shoot the crows and get things that you pick up from them. It looks like you can still get pretty much consistently as many pickups as you could on the original game. You could still break these barrels. I like that they dab some yellow paint on it just to make it highlighted. Now I'm not sure if I may have just skipped past there that there was a well with like a piece of wood, which on the original if you shot it then you'd get like a necklace or medallion or something. We also just went past a typewriter, which on this demo you just can't use, but it does show that the typewriters are back and you'll use them to save your progress. So that, in fact, there is the well. On my first playthrough I did actually shoot the piece of wood, and perhaps I didn't want to waste enough bullets to try it enough, but it didn't seem to do anything. So the geography of this little area that you walk through here is different. I'm not sure if I've already gone past it. It might have been where that crow was, but there was a dog like that had been killed on the floor with its leg trapped in a bear trap, and obviously that is a twist on the original one where you would save a dog which is trapped in a bear trap and then it would help you. Now here was me trying to be clever, because on my first playthrough I killed these guys, and then on this one I was like, well, I'm just going to speed run it and run through. ran into a bear trap. My health is already running low, as you can see on the right hand side. Here is the famous inventory screen. If you haven't played it, there's an indie game, which is a puzzle game called Save Room, which obviously is based on a Resident Evil save room, but obviously it's based on the concept of saving room. So far that looks like it works exactly as you will have remembered from Resident Evil 4, which is similar to what they put into Resident Evil 8. I'm glad that they do keep that you can do kicks. Now this guy gets up with his twisted neck, so it seems like it's going to be a recurring theme, and I was quite pleased that I was able to see that I could take care of this guy just with a knife. I did find the controls of this a little bit tricky to get used to, and I'm not sure how similar or different they are to the control layout of Resident Evil like Village or Resident Evil 7 or Resident Evil 2 or 3 Remake, but it was just that because you'd have the L2 button to draw your gun, the L1 button to draw your knife, and then the R1 button to run. I found that a little bit bizarre because I still can't ever quite get past the idea that like you press R1 to draw your gun, because that's what you do in like Resident Evil 1 on like the PS1. So I didn't spend too much time looking at this here, but they set this guy on fire. So there you see, I did actually kind of skip through that, whereas I watched it a bit more on the first one. The first run through I did, and he just kind of wriggles in pain a bit. Nothing too exciting for me to add back in here. But the layout of this area, it would be interesting to do a side-by-side because it feels like it's nearly identical. It might be good to go into this area like later in the game on the original version, just when there's no enemies there, and just sort of follow the route that I take here just so we can spot the differences. So that's all a little bit Metal Gear, or I was doing a lot of that on the Callisto Protocol, which I played a month ago, where you sneak up and kill bad guys. Well, actually, I say I was doing a lot of it. You don't have tons and tons of opportunities to do it on the Callisto Protocol. But it's interesting when they add in a new mechanic like that, just because you start to wonder how much you will have to do that and how much it means that the gameplay will be slowed down because you're going to be using a lot of sneaking mechanics. So I did wonder if me making all this racket and noise was going to attract anyone. And this is interesting, and you need a key to open it, so it looks like this small keys from Resident Evil like 1 and 2 may be back. But I'm about to be interrupted, so I don't know if you can actually kick the door open and injure people. Now, the animation and everything here is amazing. I'm not 100% sure I'm completely convinced that these are the best graphics I've seen in a Resident Evil, which is weird because in theory they should be. But there's something just about the villagers, it just seemed a little bit unrealistic, and I'm not quite sure what it was. It didn't quite seem like as real people as we've seen in like Resident Evil 2 and 3 Remake. So you can break these and pick stuff up, and then you'll go upstairs and you'll get the shotgun, and this is all exactly the same as on the original. Can't remember if the chainsaw guy breaks in at that exact point on the original. He probably does. But this is something important, to get the grenade here and then just dive through this. I didn't run round to the other side to see if it's this spinal or spinal, whatever it is, which is the other side of this roof. I don't think I actually went round there on my couple of playthroughs. But the fact that you could jump off the roof there, this is all very similar to the original Resident Evil 4. So something I still need to get used to is just pressing that run button. I was quite pleased that as well as R1 you could just tap down on the left analog sticks, which I guess is L3, and that would make you run as well. But here comes the chainsaw guy, and I figured like, right, let's see if I can take this guy out, get that red jewel that you get in the original. And it's like, okay, let's blow the sucker up. Use the grenade. I'm sure you don't get a grenade this early in the original game. Maybe you do though. But you may have noticed there on the inventory screen that you pick up some gunpowder, and that's obviously carried over from Resident Evil 3 Remake. You can use gunpowder. Now maybe that was a wasted shot, but now I'm being overwhelmed by bad guys, just because they can put a lot more into this obviously. Now, just looking at my health there, you can still... Controls still feel exactly the same, just to combine items like that. And then it feels like they're so close to catching you. Like, there's a guy you'll probably see in a moment as I run past him, he just kind of chases after you a little bit. I think this one is going to. Like, that really feels like he's going to get you. So, I don't know how much they can get you, or if you're always just a bit faster than them. But this is all pretty much exactly the same as the original Resident Evil 4, just got modern graphics and has got like some modern gameplay, some modern controls, like tweaks, but it still very much feels like the original Resident Evil 4. So for a demo, it's interesting because this is one of, if not the most famous part of Resident Evil 4, especially with the chainsaw guy. But it just feels so familiar. Like, I'm sure a lot of fans will be very excited just to have this remade and be able to play it again. In one sense, if they'd just had these graphics and they said it's just the exact same gameplay, exact same controls, exact same story, exact same progression and everything through the game as the original, but with these graphics, I think a lot of people would have been happy. So it'll just be interesting to see what the twists and turns are. Like, I think you could go in there in the original. There might be one or two extra little places you can go in. I was about to get a surprise up here, just because this always reminded me of the film Wrong Turn anyway, because there was like a tower you could climb into. But I was thinking for a moment that I was just going to stand there, and if anyone climbed the ladder I was going to slash them with a knife. But to my horror, I suddenly find that I'm thrown out of the frying pan and into the fire. Almost managed to get that saying out. Hopefully you can't hear an echo of the gameplay behind me as I'm speaking, just because I am listening to it. See if there's anything significant to talk about, just as I'm watching this through again. Like I said, I literally did just play this, but you know, this is still very fresh to me to remember everything that happened.
Let's see you climb this.
So that's interesting. As Leon kicked down the ladder, he said, "Let's see you climb this." So it sounds like he'll still have some of his one-liners, and he does, you know, we'll get to it in a minute, but he does say the exact same thing at the end of this demo as he does at the same point in the original game, where it's like, where's everyone going to play bingo, which was a bit lame then. It's still a bit lame. So I didn't really stick around to see what that flash grenade achieved, but I never liked the flash grenades in the original game anyway. When I played it the first time, I was just running away from these guys, and I was proven right in that for this section you do just have to kind of last things. Now it's interesting there that that barn gets burned down. I don't think it does in the original. Come in here and this is a little bit of a dead end. And look at that, I meant to use my knife, but it's still just, I'm not quite used to controls here. And I was like, oh, can I take this guy out? But no. This is the end of the demo here. So I hope you've enjoyed seeing this playthrough. I don't like that their eyes are like that. It feels like that should be later in the game when you start getting like the tentacly squid thing coming out their head. I don't know. I thought this was very good. I'm going to give some final thoughts, which I pre-recorded in a moment. So I'll allow myself to take over. But this is the end of the demo. I would recommend that you get it and play it for yourself. I'm certain this is going to be an incredible game, and there's going to be tons of twists and surprises. And this, they've just given us something that's very familiar. But I'm sure from what we've seen of the gameplay and everything about the game already, there's going to be changes that we don't expect as well. If I had to predict now, will this be better than the original? I don't know. I'm inclined to say no, I don't think it is going to be, but that's just a prediction just based on my gut feeling that this didn't instantly prove to me that this is going to be better than the original. Obviously, it's just a lot more modern graphics, and the gameplay is more like that of Resident Evil 2 and 3 Remake. Bingo? There you go. And that's the demo. So, if you haven't done so, smash that subscribe button. I'm going to give you some more thoughts on the game in a moment. Like I said, I pre-recorded, but yeah, I'd appreciate any subscribes you can give me just to help me grow the channel. It shows my demo results, so this time I completed it in 12 minutes. First time was about 25. So I'd be interested to see, let us know in the comments what your record times are for this. At least this demo does give you something like that, so you have like a reason to keep playing it over and over. So yes, that was the chainsaw demo for Resident Evil 4. Now, it's only a little while until the full game is finally in our hands, and we've been waiting for this for quite some time to have that Resident Evil 4 remake, and I would say that my impressions of this is that it seems very promising. Yes, I would say this plays more like Resident Evil 2 Remake and Resident Evil 3 Remake than what it absolutely reminded me of the original Resident Evil 4, just because the controls feel more like Resident Evil 2 and 3, where you can turn any direction. Doesn't really have those tank controls anymore. I found it a little bit tricky to get used to the button layout, and that may be that they're exactly the same as they are in Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes, but it might just be that I'm so ingrained to looking at something that looks like Resident Evil 4 and having those older style controls. Do I think this is a worry? No, not at all, because I am certain that I'm going to get used to these controls within about 20 minutes of playing it in the main game, and so I'm very much looking forward to it. This demo didn't really show a whole lot new compared to the original version. When you actually got into the village area where there were all of like the people around the burning of the cop, then it felt like the exact same layout as you remember from the old game. Really wasn't any surprises. There was still like the barn with the cow in it. There was perhaps like a little different route down from, there's a section where you can run up a hill and then normally it's a dead end. There was a way that you could circle around, and in a sense that made it a little bit easier. Definitely more enemies that you came up against, so I didn't really feel that I'd got enough firepower just to fight them off, or even to concentrate on trying to take out the chainsaw guy. But in my second run through, I absolutely thought, right, I'm going to take on the chainsaw guy. I managed to get myself a grenade. I've got that shotgun, only 5 shells, and I threw it all at him. But of course the demo ended before I was able to take him out. So I hope you've enjoyed this preview of Resident Evil 4. Enjoy playing the chainsaw demo, and we're going to do a full deep dive and review when the full game drops in a couple of weeks time. Till next time, make sure you smash that subscribe button on youtube.com/@GeekBattleGaming, and until next time, ciao for now.